Welcome to Rick's Corner. Today I have a guest that I met down at Venice Beach on Labor Day at the contest. We were down walking around and somebody introduced me to this man named Thomas DeLauer, who has a really good history in bodybuilding and fitness and weight loss, and I thought, man, we'll talk about that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So here we are, and Thomas is here, and I'm ready to talk about this. Let's start first. How heavy were you when you started this?
Jeez, at my largest, I was pushing 280.
Wow. What were you eating? Everything?
Everything in sight.
Seriously?
Yeah, I mean, it started out, I wanted to be a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was. I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I wanted to get as big as I possibly could, and I literally started eating everything in sight. I think my post-workout meal at that point in time was a couple double cheeseburgers from McDonald's, and doing it ultimately all the wrong way.
The weight that you put on, was it bad weight? Was it muscle or was fat with it or what?
I mean, I would say that realistically, I put on a good amount of what I call clay mass, you know, that initial good bit of muscle by, of course, having the surplus in calories.
Yeah.
But I think that at the end of the day, probably about 50% of it was just total garbage weight. I mean, weight that I could have done without, that just put excess stress on my joints, made me feel like crap. I mean, it was...
You know what that reminds me of? Did you see the movie Super Size Me?
Of course.
Well, there you go. McDonald's for 30 days.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I won't even eat McDonald's. I mean, I'll go to In-N-Out once in a while. They have good quality meat, and you got tomatoes and lettuce and cheese, it's the protein and little veggies. The bread's the carbs, so what? About 6-7 grams maybe?
Yeah.
And that's not so bad. So you got that heavy. For how long did you stay that heavy?
Not long. I really stayed there for probably about a year and a half before I realized that, really, quite honestly, I pulled my head out of my rear and realized I was seeing friends that were bodybuilders that were 29, 30 years old and just totally messing themselves up, coming down with heart conditions, ending up on dialysis, and I'm going, this is not what I want for myself. I mean, I've been with my wife since high school, so I was with my wife at the time. She was with me when I went from 140 pounds to 280 pounds in just a couple of years.
She's got two of you.
So she saw me in both realms of life, and I looked at her, and she loves me regardless, and I'm just looking at her going, I don't want to end up being one of these guys. I don't want to be on dialysis when I'm 30. I don't want to mess myself up and make myself diabetic by eating what I was eating all the time in chase of something that I just know was a reality.
How did you physically feel walking around that weight? How were your joints? Did it affect them?
It didn't affect my joints too much at that point in time because I was 20 years old and I don't think I had a lot of cumulative stress built up on me.
Yeah. How about your wind?
That was horrible.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
And I found it easy I ended up blowing up a triple hernia just because of that weight. The second that I did try to break into a full-blown sprint trying to attempt some HIIT cardio at that weight, boom, 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 triple hernia.
Oh yeah. Your strength was good.
Strength was good. I had a lot of internal leverage with that volume of size, but I wasn't trying to be a power lifter. I was trying to be a bodybuilder.
No, I know, I get that. I know. But we all have that strength thing we have to go through at some point in our life. Yeah. And then we realize it's not all about the weight, it's more about the reps and the diet and all that.
Exactly.
So how did you start to lose it? What did you cut out?
The first thing that I cut out was I realized that I didn't need to be... actually, what I really realized was not so much what I wasn't eating, but what I was eating, but what I wasn't eating. It was more so, what nutrients am I lacking? I started really thinking about it, and put two and two together, said, when I'm done with my workout, my body's receptive to nutrients. At that point in time, if what they say is true, where I'm going to get the maximum absorption of nutrients at that point in time, why am I giving myself garbage? Why am I giving myself McDonald's? Yeah. So that's the first thing I changed, and simply by changing and altering what I put in my body post-workout, by actually changing my mindset from macronutrients to let's utilize this time period to get micronutrients that my body needs. Just doing that alone, I dropped about 30 pounds in 2 months.
Explain the difference between macro and micronutrients.
So macronutrients, and for me it's more of a mindset. So macronutrients, looking at your protein, carbs, and fats, of course. Just those three basic pictures of what makes a meal, what makes nutrients. When I look at food, I try to look a little bit more at the micronutrients. And in bodybuilding, unfortunately, we've got this aura about it where we only need to focus on macronutrients. Well, that's not true. Our body still thrives on micronutrients. Micronutrients being the vitamins, being the minerals, being the things that we need to actually function. Yeah. The micronutrients make up the macronutrients. So I just started looking in a little bit more detail, saying, what am I depriving my body? What am I not giving my body? And you look at a McDonald's nutrition profile, there's a lot that you're lacking.
There's a lot, yeah, absolutely. And as you get older too, you need more. I know that now, at my age now, compared to what I was then, I have to really be careful what I put in. I need certain vitamins as you age, and it makes a huge difference. And diet's key. If someone says, "How do you get good abs?" I said, "Start in the kitchen."
Always.
Yeah, it's not as many reps and things you do for the stomach, because the stomach grows.
Yep.
It grows like everything else. It sounds, I'm doing 1,000 abs a day, my stomach's getting bigger. Yeah, of course it's getting bigger.
Yeah, you're bulking it.
Yeah, you're bulking it up. And side bends too, you know, like blowing them out. I mean, I just see this like, oh my God.
I always say that's the quickest way to get a body like a refrigerator.
Exactly. And you can't tell people, they think it trains it down and trims it down, but it doesn't at all.
No.
All right, so you tightened up your diet, you started to lose.
Yeah.
How was your training at that time?
Actually, believe it or not, I think something happened psychologically as I was starting to see more definition, starting to see more shape in my body, where I actually got stronger, and I swear on my life that's true. And I think it was psychological more than anything. I think I was starting to see muscle bellies I didn't see before because they were always covered up with bloat and fat. So my strength went up for a good period of time before I finally reached that tipping point where, okay, I get down to 215, 220. Yeah, then I'm not going to have that internal leverage and that volume behind me.
Yeah.
But for a long period of time, my strength stayed pretty darn high, and that's what really drove me and continued to keep my motivation throughout the entire process.
And no soreness or injuries, no joints.
I got very, very lucky with that.
Boy, you're lucky.
Before I was on my way up to 270, I had a partial tear of the my bicep tendon, but fortunately I got to wear a little tourniquet for a while and didn't have to have the full surgery.
Thank God for that.
Yeah.
I ripped my tricep completely off.
Is that why you had the Band-Aid?
No. No. I bump into things. I bump into walls, I bump into gates, I bend over, I got stitches in my head from surgery. I bent to get apple juice out of the refrigerator, I hit my head on the shelf and didn't break a stitch, but it split a little bit. I'm just clumsy. Just the way it is. I was doing decline triceps in the gym. I'm going back about 20 years ago. I was 65, and I heard a big snap, and all of a sudden my tricep shot up my arm. And weight just fell out like that. Yeah. And my arm started to swell and turn black and blue, and I thought, well, maybe I sprained it. I go to the hospital, I said, oh, you just sprained the tendon. Took an x-ray. I look in the x-rays days later, and there's a bone chip on the tendon sitting in the middle of my arm. No, I tore the whole thing off. At that point, it was too late to reattach it. So I never had it reattached.
So is your tricep deformed now, or is it not?
It's deformed. Yeah. I walk around like this. No, it's definitely flat compared to what it was, but everything around it kind of compensates and built up for it. Good. So that worked okay. But it's easy to tear things, and it's happening more and more with people. I see it all the time. I tore both quads in 2001. That was a nightmare. Ooh. It took 6 weeks and leg braces and almost a full year to walk again. Jeez. So that can happen. Yeah.
It's just simply having the hernia surgery, because I had inguinal and then I also had an umbilical hernia from that, from being so large. Yeah. And I will say that, that forever distorted my lower abs.
Oh yeah, I had the umbilical. I had it done. I was back in the gym in like 4 days.
Yeah, it's an easy recovery.
It's easy recovery, yeah.
Really easy recovery.
But it always made you feel like you had that one little pocket here, like belly.
Exactly.
And it doesn't go away. And maybe as a child in there, I'm not quite sure.
When I get really lean now, you can see the square mesh that they inserted there, and it's just a perfect little square.
And before they do it, it's like a doorknob. It sticks out, and you can literally push it in and go. Yep. You can hear it squishing, right?
I remember the feeling.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. So now your diet is what consists of what?
Well, now I don't know if I didn't get a chance to really fully explain the full story as to why I eat, but when I met with you just this last weekend, but basically it took a couple of serious turning points in my life for me to really figure things out. One was my dad being diagnosed with a multitude of different cancers, stage 4, metastasized from the lungs, that they essentially were saying, okay, we can attribute a lot of this to how you ate. And then my wife was also diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that affected her thyroid. And that autoimmune disease turned me on to really eating organically, because that was the advice she was given, is, hey, this is your body's response to eating a lot of foods that your body really just doesn't know how to process, i.e., whether it be GMOs, whether it just be processed foods or whatever. So she had to really take a big turning point, and just by default, I did as well, because we lived together. And I started realizing, holy cow, I feel so much better.
It's teamwork.
Yeah, and I just started feeling so much better. So my entire approach from there became it's less about how much food I get in and more about the quality of the food and what I actually absorb. And that is my claim to fame now. It's, I don't eat as much as a typical man my size would, because I try to eat foods that my body's going to assimilate. Right. And I ingrained that in my mind. Ingrained that in my mind. And I basically just told myself that if you eat the foods that you're going to absorb, then you're going to do more, do the most with the least, which is what I was always taught in every aspect of life. Do the most that you possibly can with the least, and magically my body just transformed. And
what's your meals consist of now?
So now when I'm cruising just along through the year, and I don't have any magazine shoots or anything like that. Like, you know, next week I'm shooting a couple of covers, so my diet's a little bit different. But generally speaking, I like to keep it low carb just because I like to keep the water.
I agree with you. I agree.
And for me, it comes down, I do a lot of video, so for me, if I'm consuming carbs, my face bloats.
Yeah.
And I don't like that for video.
Right.
So I know it sounds totally vain, and
no, but that's why we're working towards a goal. We're sculpting the body. You don't want to have a bloat or this and that on camera. You need to look good on camera. What we do on camera is what we do for a living. Exactly. Now you take people that that must be my dryer. No, it's my daughter's dryer. What we do for a living is we're in front of the camera. People who aren't in front of the camera don't care.
Exactly.
I mean, I have friends like that I grew up with. They don't care. They don't even think about working out or eating right. They don't care. They have no reason to. No. But we do have reason to, and it's to inspire others on top of that and motivating others to do what we do so they can be better at what they do.
Precisely. Exactly.
Now, the other thing with the carb, how many times a day do you eat?
I've recently changed this, and I'm going to briefly explain why. So I've gone from the stereotypical 6 or 7 meals per day to going a little bit more towards listening to my body, eating when I'm hungry. But that comes with years and years and years of experience of really knowing when I'm hungry, not when I'm psychologically convincing myself to be hungry. So generally speaking, it ends up being about 5 times per day. That's just how often I get.
That's about right.
Yeah. So there used to be times when I'm like, I have to eat every 2 hours regardless whether I'm hungry or not. That's useless. Well, you're just wasting food.
I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's what led me to weigh 280 pounds of junk.
It's funny though, because I think it was yesterday I was eating. Not even my daughter or something. I was feeling really, really tired. And this happens quite often, maybe to you guys out there too. You get really tired, then you sit down and you eat. All of a sudden, about 5 to 10 minutes into it, you start to like perk up. You start to feel pretty good again. Mm-hmm. Your body really needs that food at that moment. Yeah. Like today at lunch. Now I went out and I stopped and ate somewhere, but I had creature of habit. I had a tuna fish omelet. Okay. Tuna cold on an omelet. It's actually very good.
Sounds really
good. If you think of a tuna sandwich, the bread is the bread. There's really not a lot of flavor to the bread. It's just the tuna. The egg, whether it's egg white or egg, really doesn't have a lot of flavor. It's more like bread. So you're wrapping the egg around the tuna. So you're basically having a tuna sandwich with egg.
Interesting.
So you're getting double protein.
Yeah.
Now sometimes I'll eat cottage cheese with it, or a lot of times I used to eat a lot of cottage cheese. Today I just had some cantaloupe. Only reason being, Clarence Bass told me that cottage cheese is full of sodium and you're going to retain too much water. So I have been retaining water, so I'm listening to you, Clarence Bass. I'm dropping my cottage cheese out for a little bit, even though it's a good source of whey protein.
Have you seen at Safeway? They actually have a no salt cottage cheese.
I can't imagine what it tastes like.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so I don't know if Clarence knows of that, but it is the most god awful tasting stuff that you'll ever experience.
You know Ken Waller, who Ken Waller is?
Yeah.
All right. Ken and I used to go out to eat for lunch down the marina years ago. He always mixed honey in his cottage cheese and mixed it up. So I've done that a few times. It's really good.
Really good.
And even kids like my daughter, they get those strawberry thing, the strawberry and cottage cheese mixed up. I have a name for it. They like it because it gives it flavor. Yeah. And cottage cheese is a good source of protein.
It is, and it's actually more of a caseinate protein than anything.
Yeah.
That curd that it kind of turns into, it gets that gelatinous little component to it that actually slows the digestion, so it's perfect to eat at night before bed.
So what do you do about water weight? What do you cut out?
That's the thing, is I have, it's always a battle with water with me, and that's what I found is just genetic. Some people have more issues. For me, to get shoot ready, it's not a matter of dropping body fat. I stay lean all the time. It's a matter of how do I manipulate the water out of my body. So to stay dry and to control the water weight, I'm just, I try to drink at minimum 2 gallons a day. And I know that sounds like a lot to some people, and it may sound extreme, but that's just what I have found that I need to not have a constant fluctuation in water in my body.
It sounds like for you out there, you're drinking 2 gallons, you're going to hold it all, but you don't.
No. The more you drink, the more you expel.
Exactly.
So it's...
and Clarence had told me about this too, I had a physical a while back, and I had too much water outside the muscle. Yeah. A lot of outside the muscle, not enough in the muscle. Mm-hmm. Water in the muscle keeps it full, but outside it covers it up. Yeah. So you have to find out how to get it away from outside the muscle so that your body shows that you have muscle. Yep. And that's difficult at times. The way it was described to me was that it's called an isotonic state. Mm-hmm. So when if you've got a water balloon that has just water in it, and a water balloon that has water and salt in it, if you were to magically be able to connect those water balloons, the water balloon with the salt would shrink the water balloon with just the water. It would draw it in. And that's the illusion or the theory behind an isotonic state. And it happens in your muscle with the subcutaneous versus your muscle belly. The same happens. So sometimes it's a sodium issue if you're not having enough or too much, and it throws off that balance. So like if you're prepping for a shoot or for a show, sometimes after you begin cutting water out, you slowly add sodium in
so that it draws the water from the subcutaneous tissue into the muscle by actually having sodium within the cell.
Yeah, it does. I'll tell you why. My doctor told me, this has been 3 weeks ago, he says, all your records came back and your sodium level is really low.
Yeah.
Why is it so low? He says, well, it doesn't mean you're not getting enough salt. It's just low. You have to balance that out, just like you said.
Yeah.
So it gets to be pretty scientific. You got to really figure out what's going on there.
Do you drink a lot of water?
I do drink a lot of water. I drink a lot of iced tea, too.
So do I. So, and ironically, I'm low in magnesium, I'm low in sodium. Potassium was fine, but the fact that I was low in sodium and low in magnesium showed that I'm probably drinking a lot of water and flushing a lot of my minerals out.
So then you have to take them separately.
Yeah, so I take about 500 milligrams of magnesium. I do take potassium additionally as well. And then I try to get my sodium, but I try to get it from that Himalayan pink salt because it's a much more balanced sodium. It doesn't have as much fluid retention.
I want to bring up something while we're on this subject. Have you heard of this H2 Force? Which is Pete Kromkowski gave it to me. Pete is a very well-known bodybuilder, and it's a molecular hydrogen that goes into your body, and it's an alkaline that balances out the acid in your system.
Really?
And it's a tablet. You put it in water, and you drink it. It gives you energy. It heals soft tissue, prevents fatigue, and it's pretty good. I've been doing it for a couple of months. H2 Force. You know who Pete Kromkowski is?
Yep.
He was the owner of Gold's Gym for years.
Totally.
Anyway, he's got this out there, Grimco and International.com, if you guys want to try it. He sent me 5 bottles, and I've been doing it every morning without fail before I go to the gym. And it does spark up my energy a little bit. So you're talking about water and alkaline and that type of thing. I think it's interesting how it balances it out so you don't have so much acid, because we're made up of a lot of acid. We don't want that.
Well, this is actually something that I would take, and I don't take a lot of supplements because I try to do.
Well, I'll give you a bottle before we go.
Yeah, definitely do.
Okay.
That's actually really cool.
See what you think.
You know what's crazy is you talk about the alkalinity and the pH water. It's so funny. I just to give everyone a real life example as well as you, I've heard so many things about the alkaline water and whether it's good, whether it's bad.
Yeah.
It's such a toss up, and I do know for a fact that you can't change your blood pH. You can change your immediate body pH, like your water pH, like your saliva. You can't really change your blood pH. The whole purpose of your blood pH is to be at 7.4 where it should be.
Right.
But the whole alkaline water thing, there were some theories that made sense, so I wanted to try it. So last week I was traveling. I was holding a lot of water because travel bloat, flying, things like that. I'm like, okay, I'm in a pinch. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this alkaline water thing. So that day I drank 2 gallons of alkaline water. The next day I was down 7 pounds.
Really?
7 pounds in one day.
Oh, well, the alkaline water thing, I don't know if anybody's asked you about it. I had a girl I was training, she bought me 4 gallons of water like every other day. I'm supposed to drink all of this. And then you got to go to a meeting, and then they try to sell you the water machine for $5,000, right? Yeah. No, I'm not buying into this stuff. I've been around a long time. I know things when I see it, and it's just a way to buy a machine. Yeah. And then they tell me I went because they offered me a free meal. so I'm listening to this guy talking. He says, at the end of the whole show, how many people want machines? And some people bought them. He says the other thing too, to just have more alkaline in your water and no acid, just squeeze a lemon into it, because a lemon isn't an acid, it's an alkaline. Yep. So basically, all I need to do is buy lemons.
Yeah, that's all you need to do.
And it's crazy.
And the lemon, it is acidic, but it has in the standard negative feedback system in your body, it stops the production of acid because you're adding an acid. Yeah. Same thing with apple cider vinegar, things like that.
I do that every day. Yep.
You know, do you use the Bragg's brand?
I buy it at the market, whatever it says, apple cider vinegar.
I'm just saying it just because Bragg's is up in Santa Barbara, and Bragg's is the one that really made the name for apple cider vinegar and stuff, and the whole Bragg's aminos thing. Yeah, yeah, they're pretty cool. So I went up to their ranch a couple weeks ago. They have a 100-acre ranch up in Santa Barbara, and pretty amazing the history that they have with apple cider vinegar and how they kind of pioneered it. But it was just really interesting to learn about it. I've always used it.
I have too.
I'm just learning more and more every day, especially from them kind of showing me just case studies and things like that. I mean, it heals a lot of things.
It does heal a lot of things. You got to be consistent. Yeah. Like with anything in life. I'm going to go on after we close this out. We're going to do a part 2 on the other thing we talked about, so we don't run like an hour. So I want to add on the next show we do your workout routine as well.
Yeah, totally.
Is there any advice you want to give to people out there about losing weight right now? How you lost so much weight and how to stay with it, or whatever you want to say?
I think there's 2 things. The first one is consistency, and that consistency, by consistency I mean focus. Find one thing that works for you and stick with it. Don't try to, the mistake that a lot of people make is they try something for a couple weeks and then they try something different, especially if you're in the bodybuilding world. We all know we like to conduct little science experiments on ourselves, so just go and try something and stick with it and give it at least 6 weeks. You got to promise yourself that, because the body takes 6 weeks to find that new homeostasis. The other thing is, and I'm not trying to sound like just a burnout hippie when I say this, is honestly switching to organic really did change my life. It changed, and those of you that have seen me on magazine covers, cover of Iron Man, I mean, I'm not just an organic hippie. I'm actually someone that's saying eating organic changed my physique. I absorbed more, my muscles got denser, and I attribute it all to just that maximum absorption. So just give it a try. I know it's more expensive, but you can get away with eating less of it. You really can.
Makes sense to me. Yeah. Where can we find you on the internet?
All over the place.
Well, if they want to go to, you have a website?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So prolineorganic.com. Okay. That's our authority site, like my blog and everything like that, which is a pretty big staple in the organic world. Okay. And of course, I'm on Facebook. Just type in Thomas DeLauer, THOMAS.
That's awesome.
So I'm all over there, and then of course Instagram the same. That's the best way to find me. We also have a podcast, the Proline Organic podcast, that you can check out on iTunes.
This is awesome. Also, I want to remind you to go to rickdrasinoriginals.com for my original Gold's Gym t-shirt with my signature, along with the Golden Era Bodybuilding, and I have other new models coming out as well. So
you're going to give me one of those.
I'm going to give you one of those. Stay tuned for more, and we'll see you next time on Rick's Corner.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
DrasinCom. He is the equalizer, baby. See you next time.